and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. My name is Christabel, the original Power Ranger princess, and I'm full on missing a nail, but we're gonna go with it. Anyways, you guys, I'm so happy to be able to sit down and talk to y'all. I'm trying this new thing, and this is how I'm dealing with my loneliness. I'm trying this new thing where every day I try to at least make one YouTube video. Whether or not I post it, only time will tell. But I'm so happy to have you guys. I just wanted to send a quick shout out to everybody who has recently subscribed. You guys are so awesome and you mean so much to me. So I just wanted to quickly talk about name changes and what the process is in South Africa and potential challenges that you can have as a result of your name change. So one of the first things that I ever did when I began my transition back in 2011, I was in therapy, and during that period, I remember I was thinking of what name I wanted, like what name would I choose for myself. I'd had such a unique name and nickname that I knew that I wanted my name to be a name that, you know, other people don't really have, that you don't really hear. But I also knew that it had to mean something like special and significant to me. And one of my favorite, and I hate to say it, favorite Disney princesses growing up was Belle from Beauty and the Beast. I just loved her whole archetype. So I knew I loved the name Belle. Also, when I used to watch Days of Our Lives, y'all remember Sean and Belle? Baby, I loved Belle. So, and Belle means beautiful. And this is going to sound so embarrassing, but I was always a huge fan of Paris Hilton, and one of the first movies I watched from her, not a reality show, but an actual movie that she was in, was called Hottie and Naughty, and her character's name was Christabel. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that is the prettiest name I've ever heard. And it had Belle in it, and I was like, and then I researched what it meant, and I was like, done, done. So I told my psychologist, and she looked at me, and she was kind of like, it sounds like Tinkerbell. Why don't you choose something gender neutral, like Leslie or Jamie? And I remember being like, I do not want to be forgotten. I'm going with Christabel. And it's always funny when I meet people and I say my name. When they don't hear me, I usually just say, oh, it's like Tinkerbell from Peter Pan. And I love that connection because when you think about the archetype of Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, they're kind of like these kids who never grew up. And even that sort of mischievous fairy energy definitely embodies me. I think a lot of people, when they look at femininity and they look at womanhood and female names, they often never want to go too extreme and sound too girly because there's this association that dare something be overtly over feminine, that it is somehow less than or bad or inherently, you know, juvenile. And I'm like, I see beauty and power and self-expression and overt femininity. Even like now I'm dressed, you know, it's completely over the top, but it's me. So I chose my name and super excited. I got, in South Africa, you need to have one of your parents sign a document saying that you can change your name. Now, I thought this was ludicrous because I was over the age of 21. I was like, huh? But I told my mom that I needed her to sign something for a bursary, and she just signed it. And I was like, cool. Now, at this time, I'm still presenting male. I go to a place called Home Affairs. Now, Home Affairs is basically the government department that deals with stuff like identity documents, name changes, marriage certificates, birth registrations, so on and so forth. So I go there fully dressed as a male with the application that I want to change my name from said name, my dead name, to Christabel. And I was dealing with this one woman. She just looked at me and she looked at the name. And she just told herself she was just going to have like a good old time making fun of me. And she insisted on saying that name as loud as she could that other people could hear. Now, I love it when people say my name. But at that time, when I was still presenting as male and I was still early in my transition, it was kind of like that kid that wants to jump in the pool, but they have their toe in there first, and you kind of just push them right in there. But, I signed the documents. I paid my little, I think it was 150 Rand back then. I paid the amount, and it took about, I would say, 6 months. Now, I got my new identity document back with my new name, Christabel, and I got a letter from the Department of Home Affairs, and that letter, if you as a South African change your name, I want you to take that letter, I want you to laminate it, I want you to put it on a little plaque up in a room somewhere safe, because that letter is going to be like your identity document. And I'll explain it later on as I go on. I was still in university at the time. I simply showed the university that letter and I explained to them that I was transitioning, and from then on, all of my documents were Christabel. They even changed, my initials from Mr. to Miss, and I remember feeling so seen. I'm so, just supported by the university. Now, dealing with lecturers on an individual level was a whole nother story. So I changed my name and I graduated twice, and both of my degrees are in my name, Christabel, and it was only my high school diploma and my birth certificate which are in my dead name. So, I always thought that what I had was enough. I have my 2 degrees, I have my identity document, my dead name is in the ground, it has been unalived, it is no longer breathing, it is gone. I later found out, many, 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 many years, that in South Africa, the identity document that you have actually is always somehow linked to your birth name. So if I'm sending if I'm sending someone money using one of the grocery stores, because we do that in South Africa, I can just go to a grocery store, go to the cashier and be like, listen, I want to send my friend Daniel some money, here's 300 Rand. They would register my details, put my identity document in, and I would get a message, and said friend would get a message saying that using my old name, my previous name, sent you money. And I never understood how that worked. I was like, what, is your birth name linked to your initial ID? And everything else, I'm Christabel. Now, when I moved back to South Africa from Thailand, I wanted to start, like working, and I was living in Cape Town. Now, Cape Town is known for having a lot of call centers. If you're new in Cape Town and you want to find a quick, easy job, call centers are the perfect place to start because it's so easy to get in. So I was living in a backpackers, and me and this one gay guy and this other friend of ours, Andrea, we all decide we're going to go and just apply at these random call centers. Now, out of the three of us, I was the last one standing. I did my assessments, I got through the interviews, and they were like, perfect, you have gotten the job. We want you to start working on the 1st of July. You'll work for our call center. We just need these documents from you. So they specifically needed my high school certificate. Now, I'm a university graduate, and you can't really go to university unless you've done high school. Like, there's no university in South Africa that would let somebody in grade 8, 9, or 10 study there. So by virtue of having your university certificate that is in your name with your identity number, that then means that yes, you are, like, you know what I'm trying to get at? But the place I wanted to work at, they specifically wanted me to provide my high school diploma. So I was like, cool, I can like get my high school diploma. I get them my high school diploma and a couple of other documents. And I explained to them that, like, I'm trans, so the name on my high school diploma is different from the name on my identity document and the name on my, like, degrees. So I was asked to get, even in my tax number, for example, my tax number is Christabel. Everything else in my life is Christabel outside of my, obviously, birth certificate and matric certificate. But they were like, no, we need a letter from the Department of Home Affairs stating that your name has been changed from this name to that name. Remember when I mentioned that the Department of Home Affairs actually gives you said letter? Yeah, you're going to need that letter. All the days of your life. I'm just joking. But there are certain companies, unfortunately, that do nitpick. And stuff like the fact that you've changed your first name can be an issue. And it's one of those things where I genuinely didn't understand, because so many women get married and change their last names, and the name that they had on their matric certificate or grade 12 certificate is not the name that they now have on their identity document because they're now married. It sometimes feels, like companies, businesses will look for certain loopholes just to almost make life more difficult for trans people, and you have to like jump through these arbitrary hoops. I decided, like, I gave them what I needed to give them, and because I didn't have said document and I was going to have to wait for Home Affairs to provide me with a document stating that I changed my name, and that would take maybe 3-6 months, I was like, look, I'll apply somewhere else where my name is good enough and my documents are good enough. But I'm not going to jump through all of these desperate hoops. When a company employs you, if they start acting up, and I know, like, we all need work, we all need jobs, we all need money, we all need a way to sustain ourselves. But I only say this, that 3-month probation period from how you start to how it keeps going, yes, you're on probation, but the company's also on probation. You're also watching their asses. And if you start seeing even little things like that that don't align with what is common sense to you, know that at some level you are not aligned to be working at that company. I know you aligned for the money, but you're just not aligned at that company. And it is the universe showing you that, look, these people you finna work with, them folks you finna work with, they are gonna have some shite and they're always gonna be trying to make life difficult for you. I've worked at other companies before. I've worked in one of the biggest call centers in Cape Town. Um, my degrees were good enough. I've worked at other call centers where I didn't need to bring degrees, and having a degree was almost like, oh wow, you're applying here, girl. Why'd you work somewhere for real, for real? You know what I mean? Um, so often in economies where we are so desperate to find work, we end up almost escorting ourselves to these companies that do not that don't even like make sense or don't even have like fair policies. Now, I say all this in saying that understand, as a trans woman, especially here in South Africa, documents proving your existence are like your identity document. They are like your ID. Yes, you can change your name. Yes, it can be very, very simple. But always remember that you have to keep, and this is the one thing I wish that I had done, because in my life I've always been kind of like a rolling stone where I move from one city to another country to another continent, and it's one thing after the other. And in all of that movement, I've not always been able to hold on to important documents that prove who I am. So what I'm saying is, girl, you want to change your name, you pick the name that you want. You pick the name that you've always wanted. You pick the name that reminds you of your favorite princess. You pick the name that speaks most to your truth. And you hold on to them documents, girl. And if they do fucking reject you because you changed your name, so what? So what? Tell them, this is Christabel, and I'm out. I love you guys.